The Asia Foundation includes disability. The Asia Foundation, or TAF, that is an international NGO promoting good governance in Indonesia for the last 60 years, have become more aware and active in disability inclusive development. Its Indonesia office now employs staff who are dedicated specially for disability inclusive activities, and it's introducing disability as a cross-cutting issue more widely in its program. First, the starting point. The Asia Foundation, or TAF, was responsible for the management of the Civil Society Organization, or CSO, strengthening components of the AIPJ program. This component, through core funding, helps strengthen the organizational capacity and internal system of certain national and provincial level CEOs that work in areas that are of high relevance to AIPJ. Represents the target populations, women, children, and people with disability of AIPJ. The implementation of the CSO strengthening components was significantly delayed. The selection process for national CSO only began in late 2012, which was 2 years into the AIPJ program. TAF was under a lot of pressure to commence the activities and were very aware of the limited time that they had to select the CEOs and to provide support for them in their respective thematic areas of work. TAF staff felt that there was limited understanding and inconsistent expectation by AIPJ staff at the time about the way of working with the CEOs. TAF was also very aware that at the national level, they were working with very sophisticated national organizations with strong and capable leadership. In November 2012, the AIPJ Disability Team approached TAF to explore how disabled people organizations, or DPOs, could be included in the CSO strengthening strand of the program. TAF, by their own admission, were hesitant to include the DPOs. The reason for this included concern about the capacity of the DPOs and their leadership, that they would not match and fit in with other national level CEOs. Lack of knowledge and experience on disability within TAF. Staff had very little experience and previous engagement with DPOs, and it was felt by TAF's management that they would not have the capacity to work effectively with DPOs. Concern about the priorities and needs of the DPOs. TAF expected DPOs would have different and greater needs than the CEO partners. The mainstream CEOs were the main priority. Concern about adding in DPOs into the program, particularly given the delays in implementing. Lack of designated resources. TAF felt that the resources needed, skills and budget, and those allocated in the program budget for the mainstream CEOs was insufficient to include the DPOs. In quote, the concern about insufficient capacity was also our own concern. We are not the experts in disability. We lacked experience on disability issues. TAF staff. Second, progressing disability inclusion. What took place? Agreement was reached that TAF would include 2 DPOs, SAPDA, or Sentra Advokasi Perempuan Difabel dan Anak, and SIGAP, Sasana Integrasi dan Advokasi Difabel, in the mainstream national CEO strengthening activities. It was determined that at the provincial level, because of TAF's concern about the weak organizational capacity of local level DPOs, it would be more effective to implement a disability-specific rather than inclusive strategy. The international NGO, Handicap International or HI, that has specific experience of working on capacity strengthening with small DPOs in Indonesia, was contracted to do this. TAF agreed to work with HI at a provincial level as part of facilitating networking and exchanges between DPOs and CSO locally, and that HI would also provide technical assistance to TAF to help strengthen the awareness and capacity of its own organization. At a national level, TAF managed the support provided to SIGAP and SABDA as part of the mainstream CSO strengthening program of activities. The strategies that were used and the actions that took place. Advocacy of the AIPJ Disability Team, particularly that of the Disability Inclusion Coordinator, Cucu Saida, who is a well-respected disability activist and has strong knowledge of DPOs in Indonesia. Additional budget designated to support disability inclusion at both the national and provincial level. Technical capacity made available by AIPJ team and through HI. Selection of strong DPOs, SABDA and SIGAP who have experience and expertise in justice and strong and competent leaders. TAF's staff meet the DPOs SABDA and SIGAP for the first time. This was also the first time that TAF's staff, who had very little prior experience of disability, engaged directly with DPOs. These meetings and completing the organizational assessment process helped the staff realize that the DPOs shared similar concerns, issues, and ambitions like the other CEOs. From these initial meetings, TAF's staff gained more confidence to directly engage with the DPOs. In quote, gaining confidence and overcoming concerns about the unknown and not being the expert. TAF staff. The first national forum held from 26th to 27th of November 2013 brought together for the first time the leadership from all the national CEOs, including SIGAP and SABDA. The participants shared ideas and explored issues of common interest that included disability. Other areas related to law reform, legal aid, and shared interest in research were discussed. At this meeting, TAF staff realized the extent to which the mainstream CEOs were genuinely interested in disability. TAF was positively surprised by the extent to which the mainstream CEOs included disability as a priority issue in their organizational work plans. In subsequent national forums, where second-tier leadership has participated, shared interest and collaboration on action between staff has continued. In quote, the CEO program gives space to convene on issues such as disability. TAF staff. Action on disability has resulted, including a number of the CEOs have set disability-inclusive targets for the organizations and developed disability-focused components of work. In quote, it was obvious to the CEO that their people with disability problems are and should be our problems. CSO leaders. The strategies that were used and the action that took place. Direct engagement and interaction with DPOs by TAF and the mainstream CEOs. Direct engagement with capable leaders of DPOs and working with a professional and charismatic person representing his DPO. Resources made available through core funding for CEOs to implement disability inclusion as part of their organizational strengthening and for DPOs to collaborate and give support. Facilitated engagement by TAF between different organizations encourages networking and collaboration on shared issues of interest but does not mandate the action that takes place. Factors that supported the positive changes. Donor priorities. DFAT having a policy in prioritizing disability encouraged TAF to engage on the issue. In quote, donor more than physically driven, TAF staff. Strategies that did not support the changes as had been expected. inputs and expertise from the NGO. TAF found the direct inputs from the national DPOs were more effective and influential. Third, the organizational changes that have occurred. 2 years on after TAF first engaged and included disability in their programs, TAF is now implementing disability inclusion in other programs. For example, in elections and management of the disability components in the National Social Inclusion Program, or PEDULI, supporting people with disabilities to successfully apply for the Australia Awards or AA Scholarship Program, providing input to AA on what barriers that people with disability face, and supporting AA in the design of a short course program for DPOs in Australia. Supporting policy dialogue between government and DPOs on issues such as inclusive village planning and violence against women with disabilities. Actively networking with DPOs in their own program activities and through participation in the coordination and network meetings with disability stakeholders in Indonesia. Effectively helping DPOs broaden their network with good governance NGOs working on a range of issues. Playing a leadership role in the donor coordination meetings on disability inclusion. Employing 4 staff who work on disability issues, one of whom is a person with disability. Making adjustments to create an accessible workplace, including physical space, communication, and organizational systems. Ensuring staff are much more confident to engage with and introduce disability issues in their work. Concerned about how to work with smaller local DPOs. TAF's staff feel that given the small size and capacity constraints of both DPOs and local CSOs, it is difficult to get effective engagement and links between the organizations. Concerned how to include certain impairment groups. They feel they lack sufficient expertise to particularly include people with psychological and intellectual impairments in their work. Fourth, key lessons learned, identified by TAF's staff. If mainstream CEOs recognize the relevance of disability to their organization's philosophy and priorities, they are more likely to successfully embed and ensure that their everyday advocacy work is inclusive. Inclusion is a natural endogenous process for organization. However, it is also needs external support, encouragement, and at times pressure for progress to take place. Multi-stakeholder networks on disability are an effective way for facilitating information sharing and learning between different actors. Collaboration between CEOs and DPOs is positive but needs a purpose and must lead to results. It is not enough that collaboration, it is just happening. Role models, particularly charismatic leaders, are very important and influential in creating change through helping change perceptions of people without disability and by motivating others with disability. Engagement between leaders of TAF and DPOs has helped forge relationship and collaboration between the organizations.